Fear of death. The fear of death is one of the oldest and most universal human fears. It begins when people realize that life is temporary and that every living thing eventually reaches an end. Unlike many other fears, this one cannot be completely avoided because everyone is aware of it at some level. Some fear the process of dying itself, while others fear what may happen afterward. Across history, entire belief systems, traditions, and philosophies have formed around answering questions about death. Even when people rarely think about it directly, this fear can influence goals, relationships, and personal values. It often encourages people to search for purpose, create lasting achievements, and build connections that outlive them. Fear of heights. The fear of heights is closely connected to survival. Falling from a high place has always been dangerous, so the human brain developed systems that react strongly when a person approaches a significant drop. Looking over a cliff, standing on a tall rooftop, or even watching a scene from a great height can trigger discomfort. For some individuals, the reaction becomes much stronger than necessary, creating dizziness, panic, or a feeling that they might fall despite being safe. Modern cities contain countless tall structures, yet the ancient survival instincts behind this fear remain largely unchanged. Fear of darkness. Darkness has worried humans for thousands of years because it removes one of our most important senses. Vision helps people understand their surroundings, identify threats, and feel secure. When darkness takes that ability away, uncertainty increases. Long before electric lights existed, nighttime often brought real dangers from predators, accidents, and hostile environments. Although most modern environments are much safer, the emotional response remains. A dark room can sometimes feel unsettling because the brain continues searching for information that it cannot easily obtain. Fear of public speaking. Public speaking frightens millions of people, even those who are knowledgeable and experienced. The fear usually comes from concern about judgment and social evaluation. Humans naturally care about how they are viewed by others because cooperation and acceptance were important throughout evolution. When standing in front of a group, every mistake can seem larger than it actually is. A small pause, forgotten word, or nervous gesture may feel disastrous to the speaker even when the audience barely notices. Despite being extremely common, this fear often decreases with experience and repeated exposure. Fear of rejection. The fear of rejection is deeply tied to belonging. Human beings have always depended on groups for protection, support, and survival. Being excluded once carried serious consequences, and traces of that ancient concern still remain today. Rejection can occur in friendships, romantic relationships, careers, or everyday social situations. Sometimes people avoid opportunities simply because they worry about hearing the word no. While rejection can be painful, it is also a normal part of life and often provides valuable lessons about resilience and personal growth. Fear of failure. Failure can feel threatening because many people connect success with identity and self-worth. The fear develops when mistakes are viewed as evidence of personal inadequacy rather than opportunities to learn. This often leads to hesitation, procrastination, or avoidance of challenges. Ironically, avoiding failure usually prevents improvement because growth often requires repeated attempts. Inventors, scientists, athletes, and artists throughout history have experienced countless failures before achieving success. The fear itself is natural, but it becomes limiting when it prevents action. Fear of pain. Pain exists to protect the body. It warns people about injury, illness, and danger. Because pain can signal serious problems, the brain learns to avoid experiences associated with suffering. This fear can involve physical injuries, medical procedures, or even anticipated discomfort that has not yet occurred. In many situations, the expectation of pain creates more anxiety than the actual experience. Although unpleasant, pain plays an important role in survival by encouraging caution and helping people recognize threats before greater damage occurs. Fear of isolation. The fear of isolation reflects humanity's social nature. People thrive through relationships, communication, and shared experiences. Extended isolation can create emotional distress because humans are wired to seek connection. Throughout history, communities provided safety, resources, and emotional support. Being completely alone often feels unnatural because it conflicts with those deeply rooted social instincts. While solitude can be beneficial in moderation, prolonged isolation may lead to loneliness, making this fear especially powerful. Fear of animals. Fear of animals appears in many forms and often varies from person to person. Some people fear snakes, others fear spiders, sharks, dogs, or insects. Certain fears may be influenced by evolutionary survival mechanisms because some animals historically posed genuine threats. Personal experiences can strengthen these reactions. A frightening encounter during childhood may leave a lasting impression that continues for years. Cultural stories, movies, and news reports can also shape perceptions, causing certain animals to seem more dangerous than they actually are. Fear of enclosed spaces. The fear of enclosed spaces often develops when people feel trapped or unable to escape. Elevators, tunnels, crowded vehicles, and small rooms are common triggers. The physical space itself is not always the main problem. Instead, the fear often comes from the sensation of losing freedom of movement. Once anxiety begins, physical symptoms such as rapid breathing and increased heart rate can make the situation feel even more intense. For some individuals, simply imagining confinement is enough to trigger discomfort. Fear of flying. Flying combines several different fears into one experience. Passengers are often far above the ground, unable to control the vehicle, and surrounded by unfamiliar sounds and sensations. Although commercial aviation is remarkably safe, emotions do not always follow statistics. Turbulence, takeoff, and landing can create feelings of vulnerability. Many people who fear flying are not actually afraid of aircraft themselves but rather of uncertainty and lack of control during the journey. Fear of disease. The fear of disease has influenced human behavior throughout history. Major outbreaks have demonstrated how quickly illness can affect entire populations. As a result, the brain pays close attention to signs of potential sickness. This fear encourages hygiene, medical care, and protective behavior. However, excessive concern can become overwhelming when people constantly worry about symptoms or health risks. The balance between caution and anxiety often determines whether the fear remains useful or becomes harmful. Fear of the unknown. The fear of the unknown may be one of the foundations of many other fears. Humans naturally prefer predictable situations because predictability creates a sense of safety. When information is missing, the mind often imagines possibilities that may never occur. New environments, major life decisions, unexpected events, and uncertain futures can all trigger this fear. Throughout history, exploration and discovery required people to confront uncertainty despite the discomfort it created. Fear of losing loved ones. Strong emotional bonds make relationships meaningful, but they also create the possibility of loss. The fear of losing loved ones can emerge during illness, separation, conflict, or simply through awareness that life changes over time. This fear reflects the importance of attachment and connection. People invest time, energy, and emotion into relationships, making the thought of losing them particularly painful. While difficult, this fear often motivates people to value and appreciate the people around them. Fear of losing control. Humans generally feel more comfortable when they understand what is happening and can influence outcomes. The fear of losing control appears when situations become unpredictable or overwhelming. Financial uncertainty, emergencies, unexpected life changes, and unfamiliar circumstances can all trigger this response. When people feel powerless, anxiety often increases because the future seems harder to manage. Many common fears contain this element beneath the surface, making it one of the most widespread fears of all. Fear of being forgotten. Many people want their lives to matter in some way. The fear of being forgotten comes from the desire to leave an impact, whether through relationships, achievements, ideas, or contributions to society. Throughout history, individuals have written books, created art, built monuments, and shared knowledge partly because they hoped their influence would continue after they were gone. This fear is closely connected to identity and meaning, encouraging people to seek significance beyond their own lifetime. Fear of meaninglessness. The fear of meaninglessness arises when people question the purpose of their existence. Unlike fears connected to immediate physical danger, this one focuses on deeper concerns about value and direction. Individuals may wonder whether their actions matter or whether their lives have lasting significance. Philosophers, writers, and thinkers have explored these questions for centuries. Although unsettling, the search for meaning often inspires creativity, personal growth, and a stronger understanding of what truly matters.